Hi, folks. Welcome to Crisco's Corner. Welcome back. I'm going to show here a couple of stories from MSNBC and CNN. I apologize in advance. And from my thumbnail, it says, the battle begins. Now, the war has been raging on from the progressive Democrats against Trump and the MAGA Republicans for a while, but it's really, really heating up now because of the recent polls with Trump way ahead, not only in the Republican primary, but also in the general polling. It looks like if things hold, which they very seldom do, but if they hold, Trump might actually win the popular vote next year. They're doing everything in their power to keep him off the ballot, which it's amazing to me. Let's read on, and I'm going to show you a short clip from our favorite wacko, Maxine Waters. By the way, she was also a member of the Black Panthers at one time. Donald Trump has been exactly who I thought he'd be, as a black woman with substantial experience in knowing how our democracy is supposed to work. Well, she certainly has substantial experience. We took a test here, a carbon test, and Dirt is just older than her by 2 years. The elevation of Trump was a 5-alarm warning. And she goes on, and first GOP primary, and from the first day Donald Trump announced his campaign for president, and throughout his time in office, many in Washington continue to express surprise at his reprehensible behavior. I mean, like when you stood in front of the courthouse during I believe it was I believe his name was Kavanaugh, the officer that was found guilty for killing George Floyd. If you don't get a guilty verdict, you're going to riot and intimidate a jury. I mean, that kind of irreprehensible behavior is a reflection of who he truly is. So let's read on a little bit here. Trump has called women horse-faced, dog, meat, fat, pig in particular. He leaps at every opportunity to call black women racist, nasty, stupid, not just black women, people that are stupid. You are a low IQ. Monster, unqualified. None of his constitutes normal behavior. It is beyond the pale. He's just saying the same things the Democrats have been doing for years. Now, I'm going to read this paragraph here, and we're going to move on and show a clip of her, and then we're going to show some CNN story. Apologize in advance. Sure enough, as President Trump was unabashedly hateful and made no effort to hide his relationships with groups like the Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers, QAnon, and the Ku Klux Klan. Oh, by the way, one of the grand wizards of the Ku Klux Klan, Senator Byrd, is your hero Hillary Clinton's mentor. How do I know that? Because she said so. Bill Clinton even said when it came up that he was a grand wizard in the Ku Klux Klan and he was the Clintons' mentor. Don't be too hard on Senator Byrd. Back in the day, a Democrat could not advance politically without being part of the Klan. He said it right out loud. For example, he claimed there were very fine people on both sides, not about the neo-Nazis. The very fine people, as everybody knows is paying attention, was about the statues they wanted removed in Charlottesville. There was some very fine points made on both sides of the statue argument. After a 2017 white supremacist rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, where a man drove his car into protesters, killing one of them, I marked a bold and renewed effort from Trump that sent a clear message of racism and anti-Semitism. You mean like 80% of your Democrat Party are going against Israel? 3 years later, rather than condemn forward extremists, she told them to stand by. To their delight, he also shamelessly aligned himself with America's adversaries, Kim Jong-un and Vladimir Putin. He aligned himself? The guy had the balls to walk from South Korea and cross the line into North Korea without security. It baffles me that so many failed to see this previously utter depraved modus operandi. I think somebody wrote this for her. She's not smart enough. This is why I fiercely advocate for his impeachment. Now, they couldn't do that. So now they're going to try to keep him off the ballot because they are losing and they are terrified. Now, let's go to CNN. Well, first of all, let's see the clip from Maxine Waters, and then we'll go to CNN.
If you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out is the one who's creating lies, trying to have people believe that I talked about harming people. There's nowhere in my statement, anytime, any place that we talked about harm.
Well, as you can see, there's the real Maxine Waters. Let's move on to CNN, the most trusted name in news. I had to say that. Sorry. Opinion. What this judge said about Trump is bone-chilling. Let me get the sound effects. Democracy hangs in the balance. A crock of crap. It's amazing to me. Editor's note. A former attorney is the host of a Sirius Radio, blah, blah, blah. It's an opinion page. Let's read some of this lunacy. The reason why I'm showing MSNBC and CNN, because I think it's important to see what the lunatic progressive left is actually saying on the mainstream media. A Colorado judge ruled last week that former President Donald Trump engaged in an insurrection. Well, let's ask ourselves two questions. One, how many people that were involved in January 6th in the riot and then entering the Capitol were charged with insurrection? You know, I could play the Jeopardy song, do, 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 but the answer is zero. Zero. If that was the case, then why didn't the DOJ and the FBI, who hate Trump's guts, charge him with insurrection? Why? Because there is no evidence to that, because it didn't happen. As defined by Section 3 of the U.S. Constitution's 14th Amendment, they're trying to keep him off the ballot. She didn't disqualify, meaning the judge, Trump, from the state's ballot. However, finding that the insurrection ban in the 14th Amendment does not apply to U.S. presidents. That's how they got around it, because this judge, even the progressive judge in Colorado, knew there's no standing. Everything, well, we got to read this. Everything else about Trump in her ruling was bone-chilling. District Judge Sarah Wallace wrote that Trump had played a role in this insurrection through incitement of the crowd during his infamous speech at the White House. Clips. She gave examples such as Trump telling his supporters 20 times before the January 6th attack to fight. Yeah, fight for your rights. And he also said, do it in a peaceful manner over and over and over. And he goaded his supporters into action with lines like, you will have an illegitimate president. We can't let that happen. Such incendiary rhetoric, the judge noted, coming from a speaker who routinely embraced political violence and had inflamed the anger of his supporters leading up to the certification, was likely to incite immediate lawlessness and disorder. I will say this, though, in all fairness. The Democrats played that demonstration that turned into at least a very small part of the crowd into a riot. They played it beautifully. I do have to say, though, all the FBI agents involved and all the other stuff that's coming out in the January 6th video, the fact of the matter is they probably shouldn't have had the rally at Washington, because they just fell right into the Democrats' hands. I don't think they realize how nasty and how vindictive and how evil these Democrats are. At the time the 14th Amendment was ratified, an insurrection was understood to refer to any physical use of force or threat by force by a group of people to hinder or prevent the execution of law, wrote Wallace in her 102-page opinion. How can you put that much bullshit in a 102-page opinion? The events in around January 6th easily satisfy this definition of insurrection, she concluded. Then why was no one charged? Not one single person, even the people that deserve to go to jail, that smashed windows and assaulted police, not one of them was charged with insurrection by the federal government, the DOJ. Not one. The lawsuit before Wallace to try to keep Trump off the ballot on the 14th Amendment was filed in September and blah, blah, blah. The 14th Amendment was put in. We all know the 13th Amendment is the making slavery unlawful in the United States for all time. My understanding was Stephen Douglas, the former Confederate vice president, after the war, when his state was reinstated into the Union, which I find kind of weird, because if you didn't have the legal grounds to secede, then how can they reinstate you if you never can leave? Isn't that interesting? Anyway, so when he sat down as a member of Congress, many Northern congressmen were absolutely flabbergasted. They considered him a traitor. He was the vice president of the Confederacy. Now he's holding his seat back in Congress. So they pushed through the amendment. And the trap door was for their own guys. If somebody they liked, if 2/3 of Congress voted that person in, they can come back in and be a congressman, a senator, or whatever again. Oh, God. It seems to fly in the face of reason. It's hard to believe that the framers of the 14th Amendment sought to disqualify from the ballot members of Congress, but not a president who engaged in an insurrection. He wasn't. But that was her way of getting out of this, because she knows there's nothing there. So she just made that up, frankly. And 102 pages, it's amazing. We all should heed Wallace's warnings about how dangerous Trump is. As she wrote, Trump has consistently endorsed violence and intimidation as not only legitimate means of political expression, but as necessary, even virtuous. She added, alarmingly, Trump was aware that his supporters are willing to engage in political violence, and they would respond to his calls for them to do so. They seem to forget the entire summer of 2020, when major cities in the United States were burning, when federal buildings were getting burned down by Antifa, when Antifa tried to burn down a building with federal employees and law enforcement inside and burned them alive. I guess they forgot all that. The judge couldn't be more correct. Trump has a documented history of embracing violent rhetoric that has led his supporters to threaten or commit acts of violence. From his 2016 campaign till today. I'm not going to read all of this. He's going to weaponize the government, and he called people vermin. And this paints a deeply frightening portrait of a man who could be willing to use any means available, possibly including violence. I got people that are possibly, that way they can't sue him, to achieve his personal and political ends. Well, let's see. If I recall, during the Obama administration, they sent a drone in to attack a terrorist leader. I forget his name and organization he was from. And there was collateral damage. This gentleman's son, I say gentleman, he wasn't a gentleman. The guy was a terrible terrorist. His son was there, who was an American citizen. And he died as well. Collateral damage, so to speak. And when the press asked one of Obama's State Department people, you killed an American citizen, their quote was, maybe the kid should have had a better father. Let's talk about violence. Trump has defended those who have committed some of these violent acts. Trump has repeatedly slammed the unfair prosecution of his supporters who waged the January 6th insurrection. Meanwhile, not a single one was charged with insurrection. Believe me, if Trump wanted to, he could have encircled the Capitol building, and he could have federalized the National Guard from many states and taken over. That would have been impeachable, but he didn't. He went to the mayor of D.C. and Pelosi, then the speaker, and asked for help to guard the building, and they said no. Later in the speech, Trump listed his political enemies, from Republicans in name only, presumably referring to the Republicans who do not support him, to globalists, what he called fake news media, like you, CNN. He then vowed that if he wins, he will liberate America from these villains and scoundrels once and for all. I have zero problem with that. Now, liberate anybody? Oh my gosh, can you imagine just the laws that were broken and the rights that were violated on hundreds and hundreds of Americans by the DOJ, the FBI, and some of the intelligence services? How many people's cell phone records were given without warrants? Not even a hidden FISA warrant. You talk about who's be held accountable. Let's hold them accountable. Retribution and liberation of the nation from political opponents is not something heard before in modern American politics. What a bunch of crap. let alone from the person leading the 2024 field. They are scared to death of him, not because he'll do unlawful things, not because he is going to weed them out. Remember something, President Trump can't run again if and when he wins next year, which means he can do whatever he wants to and not worry about re-election. And I don't mean that in an illegal sense. Or even arguing, radicalizing his supporters to believe that those who oppose him are vermin and must be liberated from our nation. This explains why experts such as historian Ruth Bennegat are warning us that Trump is now employing language used effectively by Hitler and Mussolini to dehumanize people, encourage their fellow followers to engage in violence. Gee, what about the speech that Biden gave? Remember that one he gave where it looked like something out of 1940s and 1950s Soviet Union with the soldiers in the background, the weird lighting, and how he said MAGA Republicans are what's wrong with this democracy, and they're blah, 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 blah. Wallace found that, though, Trump engaged in a violent insurrection. She found nothing. That's her opinion. And that's how she got out of the ruling, because she knows she can't keep him off the ballot. She could not disqualify him from the ballot. Now, nearly 3 years after that insurrection, lie, today's Trump is even more desperate. He's not desperate. You're desperate. I mean, this gives a definition of deflection a whole new meaning. He understands the most effective way to remain out of prison, given he's facing 91 felony charges in 4 jurisdictions, is to win in 2024. The situation is more than combustible. It may very well be the recipe for the downfall of American democracy as we know it. What a crock of bull. It's incredible to me. It's incredible to me. Bone-chilling statement from a judge that said he committed insurrection. So I'm going to be doing this more, going to some of these whack job mainstream media pages and just call out these morons for what they really are. There is a battle. The battle really has just begun, frankly. Just like the Civil War in the 1850s. It slowly percolated and slowly percolated. Then in 1860 and 61, it popped. I don't think that's going to happen here in America, but I think some very crazy things are going to go on. I hope and I pray, and I literally say pray, that when all this comes to the end and Trump's going to be indicted in one of these charges, the Supreme Court steps in and says, absolutely enough of this bull. We've had enough. It's about time that the adults entered the room. So what do you think of these lefties? Do you think I should be doing more videos showing how crazy they really are? Let me know in the comments. And until the next time, goodbye and good luck.